Right, a happy Sabbath to you all. And yeah, as Sidri said, a very warm welcome to Blessing. Ignatius, we've shortened to Gina. Blessing, we shortened to Ngobs. Welcome. And before we start, shall we just open with a word of prayer? We thank you, O God, for your blessings, which are many each and every day, each and every moment that we live and breathe. We're so thankful that you give us an opportunity once again to meet and fellowship and share the knowledge that you have blessed us with, the ups and downs. And we pray, O Lord, that you will be with us throughout the Sabbath day, and the many who have chosen to honor you in worship throughout this world, recognition of your being our creator. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, a happy new year to everybody. Another year we have in which to love and testify of the goodness of the Lord. And I pray that each and every one of us will use this time wisely in whatever we choose to do. And we look back at 2023 and see what it was like on this planet for all of God's creation. And I was just looking at what actually transpired throughout this year, the last year at least, and what dominated the news headlines, whether we follow them or not, was just devastation and loss throughout the year practically. We all know we had the ongoing war in Ukraine, in Africa, Sudan, and towards the end of last year, Israel and Gaza. The politics of the world were mostly 99% negative all over the globe. Extreme governments seem to be coming into being through elections and mostly riding on the horse of immigration. You find that most of the candidates get a lot of votes when they bring up the issue of immigration. And it's such a sensitive subject for many people. And those who are against it have their reasons why they are against it. And those who are actually immigrants feel the pain of being looked at as subhumans. It is really a worrying thing throughout the world. More so if you are an immigrant, as I said, and you look at why are there so many immigrants? What's going on in the world? Why are people relocating, wanting to relocate en masse, even from places where there is no war, no civil war? Why are people just wanting to relocate and be somewhere else? And for me, it's besides war, it's economics. And the economics of the world seem to be failing. Even in the countries that are complaining about immigration. And we all know too well here in the UK, we know the policies and what this government feels about immigration, and it's termed illegal immigration. And I try and work out, so then what is legal immigration? Does anybody out there want to differentiate between the two? Feel free. Today we're just having a discussion. I'm not teaching anybody anything. What would you say legal immigration is? It's very simple. It's not a trick question, honestly.
For me, I think it's hard to comprehend what is legal and illegal, because everybody, all the immigrants that leave for a reason. But I think legal immigration is when you get persecuted or threatened with violence or threatened with death. And I think, I don't know how they can prove that or what they do, or how they check that, but I think in order, because illegal immigration, legal immigration is coming through probably the proper channels, and illegal is coming through the back way.
Okay, yeah, that's more or less what I wanted. They right there, Sidri, is legal immigration would be people who make an application before they actually arrive, and they are denied or accepted, and they come in through border points. Whereas illegal immigration is when people just come in through whatever means and through undocumented entry points. So, and then you look at, okay, how many people are able to actually come through the legal immigration method? People that are coming out of a war zone. How do you apply to legally come into a place? So yeah, I think immigrants have a really raw deal in this world. And if you go back in history, you find that, wow, people complaining are immigrants themselves where they are. Okay, so
sorry, can you see the chat, or can you see hands going up or not?
I haven't seen a hand yet.
Oh, our hands up in the moment, but I don't know whether.
Oh,
I wasn't sure what you can see.
Okay, yeah. I see it now. Yeah,
that's okay.
Go ahead.
Could you or someone just try to define what legal immigration and illegal immigration mean, and also the word refugee? What's the difference between an immigrant and a refugee?
Yeah. Are you asking someone to do it? Do you have it, Elder Kaminda?
The reason I ask is because the definition that was just given a moment ago about immigration, I'm not sure if I completely agree with that.
Okay.
Unless we're saying a refugee is the same as an immigrant.
Yeah. Can you expound a bit if you have the information on that, Elder P?
No, I don't. I just wanted to.
I'm sure somebody must be checking.
I think
a refugee.
anyone.
Oh, sorry, go on.
Go on, Magda.
Yeah, I think refugee is someone who's actually leaving country for some reason where they can't go back, or there is some threats to them or something. So they usually get refugee traveling document. But immigrate can anyone, I think.
So you said an immigrant can be anyone.
I think so, but I'm not 100% sure.
Curtis, you got your hand up.
I think Debbie wanted to say something before me.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to say that a refugee is somebody who's forced to leave a country in order to, because whatever the country's going through, just like Magda said, but they're forced to leave the country. And I think immigration, if they're an immigrant, they can leave when they want to leave, or they're leaving for a reason, whatever reason they're leaving for. But that's the difference between a refugee and an immigrant.
Okay. Carry on, Curtis.
I think Debbie summed up what I wanted to say, and what Marshall put in the chat is
can
the
you-
differentiation between a refugee is one that's forced to flee from their home, and it could be because of war, violence, persecution, but there's also refugees that flee because of famine, for instance. And so an immigrant would be someone who's fleeing for pursuit of, better opportunities or quality of life, and different other reasons. But there is a differentiation between an immigrant and a refugee, where one's forced to move, where an immigrant is given a choice.
So are we saying that an immigrant is only an economic, they only move for economic reasons, or they have other reasons? Or is an immigrant just a cover term for anybody who leaves? So a refugee is a subset of an immigrant.
I would think that sounds more acceptable, Elder Paminda, because from what I hear on news, when they refer to like the people that come over by boats, they don't call them refugees, they're calling them illegal immigrants. So yeah, that's like the cover term, I would think.
Well, I came into this country as a refugee, but that was under, because my dad was already, he was a refugee from the Smith government at the time. So I came under that kind of status. Although there's nothing untoward happened to me.
Okay. Curtis, just read what you wrote there in the chat.
It's just the statement that all refugees are immigrants, but not all immigrants are refugees. It's just to say one is a subset of the other.
Yeah.
What you and Elder Paminda pointed out. So,
simply stated then, if we were to say there are three types of immigrants: illegal immigrants, there are legal and illegal immigrants, and so that would be two. And then with the legal immigrants, one set is economic and one set is, I guess we'll use the term refugee, which means they're leaving for non-economic reasons, whatever they may be, hardships or war or persecution. Is that kind of a rough term of what we're using?
I would think so. Yeah.
On that, because at least how certain governments look at refugees, they can fall into both legal and illegal categories. For instance, in Europe, in the EU, countries have we'll say a quota of how many refugees they can take in, and as long as they go through, according to them, the right channels. And someone can be a refugee and not go through those channels and still come into or go into a country illegally. So refugees can be found on the legal and illegal route.
Okay. Then somebody else, Absalom, is asking in the chat there, so where would asylum fit in that grouping? Is that not another word for refugee? But no, not really. I wouldn't think so.
Magda said it is. Someone seeking for asylum would be a refugee. I guess that's what Magda's response is.
Yeah.
Yes. So I did found on Google that those who fleeing from like escaping war, persecution, and political turbulence, these are refugees and asylum seekers. There are others who are looking for jobs or an education. They are usually called migrants. And people who want to live permanently in another country are immigrants.
Okay.
Alice asked about expats. I think there's a difference between an immigrant and an emigrant. One begins with an I and one begins with an E. Emigrants are people who leave their country, and immigrants are ones that come to a country. So I think just to respond to Alistair's question, emigrants are not immigrants. And I think Brian's study is about immigrants today, if I understood correctly, not emigrants.
Yes, immigrants, yeah. Okay, Leroy, you've had your hand up for a bit.
Good morning. Happy Sabbath to everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to touch on the asylum and refugee. So basically, my understanding and having a couple of people that have also entered the country on us and received asylum papers. It's asylum is basically what you get to stay in the country when you've come in as a refugee. So that would be the name of the visa you get, but essentially they're the same thing.
Okay. Okay. Right. Can we move on? Has anybody else got anything to say on what about immigration?
Just a question, Brian. When you started, you said that immigrants have a bad deal.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure if you're going to focus on one type of immigrant, or are you just saying putting immigrants together?
Yeah. I was actually just as a cover, people that enter another country from their own country. Doesn't matter how they're coming in or why they're coming in.
So do you think they should be just allowed to come in?
Oh, no, absolutely not. But I'm saying how they are handled and processed. And in fact, if we look at it, as I also said, governments are actually being elected on that ticket of immigration. It's a big thing when we are dealing with people's lives. And, they are being used as a scapegoat for whatever the situation in that particular country is. That's why I say they're getting a bad deal in all this, the politics of the world. People just don't want to leave home willy-nilly just because it's the thing to do. They've all got a serious story behind them and seeking asylum or a better life for themselves and their children. Yet the countries, the host countries, will deal with them, some very inhumanely. Okay. I will just carry on with the other negative stories, immigration definitely being one of them. The issue on one of the other things that highlighted throughout 2023 is, and this goes on as well, climate change. We're told that the Earth experienced its hottest day on record in 2023 for 4 consecutive days. Now, to me and any ordinary person, that's like, okay, so what's that all about? I don't really know, but for the scientists, it's a big deal. That's why we see a lot of natural disasters such as floods and earthquakes. Some places, well, I don't know if that's connected, fires. You know, this is just not your normal bushfire. These are fires that affect huge airspace where they occur. We had earthquakes in Turkey, and that fell into Syria. Syria actually got the largest share of that earthquake in Mozambique, and in Hawaii and Canada, we had massive fires that affected a great number of people, lost their livelihood, their homes, and the smoke from the fires in Canada actually spread over to the USA and covered a lot of the USA for quite a period of time. And because of this climate change thing, scientists say that 41% of amphibians, which are the world's most vulnerable animals, are at the risk of extinction. Extinction. That's it, gone. We will not see these things anymore. And we all know I know from the little knowledge I have from science, all these little creatures in the cycle of life have their place, and they all contribute to the well-being of Earth. So if 41% of amphibians disappear, that's leaving quite a massive hole in that cycle. And it will definitely affect us in one way or the other. Then we also had a major milestone in the development of artificial intelligence. Was that I'm listing it down here as part of the negative things, but it also is obviously a good thing, but used incorrectly, like so much of our inventions on this earth can be a bad thing for humans. And the last time I presented, and even before that, I said that, you know, I'm very fearful of living on this earth right now because of all what's going on. And it just looks like doom and gloom. But we go on, we go on. Then come October 7, 2023. What does that day mean to anybody out there in the news?
Was it Gaza?
Sorry?
Was it Israel attack?
Yes, yes, yes. What happened?
It was Hamas, wasn't it? Hamas attack on Israelis and then vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a normal Sabbath day like today. And in the afternoon, stories started emerging in Israel of a bloodbath that was taking place in the areas bordering Gaza, outside of Gaza into Israel. And by the end of that day, over 1,200 people were slain by Hamas insurgents. Now, I use the word insurgents. Our Western news outlets use the word terrorists. Is there a difference between the two? Can anybody explain? Insurgents and terrorists. I chose insurgents, referring to Hamas. The dictionary, Oxford Dictionary, says a person for an insurgent is a person fighting against a government or invading force, a rebel or revolutionary. That's what an insurgent is. And then a terrorist is a person who uses unlawful violence and intimidation, especially against civilians, in the pursuit of political aims.
Brian, can you repeat that again, please?
A terrorist is a person who uses unlawful violence and intimidation, especially against civilians, in the pursuit of political aims.
Will you explain why you used insurgent, not terrorist?
I actually thought that insurgent, I wrote this, I didn't think about the meanings when I was having these thoughts and writing them down. And I was going to put terrorist, and I said, okay, that's coming from a perspective of those who favor what is going on from the Israeli point of view. I don't favor any of them. I don't like the war anyway. But I said, so why don't we refer to Israel's retaliation as terrorists went over into Gaza, but we call them defense forces, when both of them are fighting over the same cause, if you like. Why would one be a terrorist and one be a defense force? I chose insurgent. Maybe it sounded better. Terrorist sounds horrible. But actually, they both are terrorists. In my
Rob,
view.
excuse me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to clearly understand the two definitions, because insurgent is, it looks like it's fighting against the government, and terrorist is fighting against civilians. Is that the difference?
But they both end up doing the same thing. The government is untouched. It's the civilians who are being maimed.
That was going to be my next further question, to say that when they say you're fighting against the government, but it's affecting civilians, the difference, insurgents, they say you're fighting against the government. Terrorists are fighting against the civilians. But at the end of the day, when it's insurgents, it's still affecting civilians.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. 100%.
Just to add to that, I think insurgents are really strictly supposed to fight the army, though, of the government. So they are fighting force against a fighting force. So it's not really to direct it at civilians, even though we know civilians get killed. But this seems directly attack on civilians, which seems more terrorist. But yeah, there's a big overlap.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. So we have what is going on in Israel up until we're speaking right now. And the bulk of the people that were killed were at a music concert in an open field. And a few hundred were captured and kidnapped and taken back into Gaza. You know, for us sitting quite a distance away from this, it really is like, okay, that happened. But for the people involved, it's honestly really traumatic. What is this world coming to when we're seeing this sort of thing happening? And because so many people are being killed, the gun violence in the States, the knife violence in England, and everywhere people are just being killed haphazardly and for no reason. What is happening to human beings? And we are just bystanders, standers watching what is going on. And because we see so much of this on television, on the news, are we just being hardened by all these news events? Oh, okay, that happened, that's happening. I've still got to carry on with my life. And you get on with what you're doing. It's not affecting you directly, so you just carry on. That day, for me, was a momentous day because what we're going to see from it, well, we're yet to see. But rest assured that it's going to change a lot of things to a lot of people, for a lot of people. Israel and the world were stunned and shocked. Israel is known to be a world power when it comes to military strength. There are no pushovers, and their intelligence, led by their intelligence organization, what's it called? Mossad. They like the top in the world, and they have their finger on everything that is going on, especially in their country. So when this happened, people are asking questions. What's going on? How could this happen on our watch? But there it is. It's happened. I'm just going over 2023, the highlights of 2023. So then, this year, carry on.
Brian, here, can I just say something? I think, just watching all those terrible things, because, I mean, I don't have a TV, but I got the phone.
Yeah.
About how any civilian, whether it's Israelis or the Palestinians, but especially the Palestinians, how they're getting killed, and it's horrendous. but it's like you do put it to the back of your mind. You do think about it, but it's what can you do? What can you do? You can't do anything, and I think that's just the bigger picture of what's going to happen. But what it does, it just, for me, it's like educating your children on all these things that are going to come, going to pass, and uh, just learning to live in that environment, whether or not, just learning to be a nicer person, just learning to be more loving and more kind, because it's just so awful what happened.
Yeah.
Because there's no real accountability with Israel and killing all those thousands of innocent women and children and men.
Yeah. Well, as we all know, in 2024, 4 billion people in 60 countries are going to go to the polls and vote in a new government. And by what we've seen through 2023, it looks like the right-wing element in these populations will have a big say in which governments are going to be elected. That being the case, 2023 is going to look like just a small play of what's been happening in the world and what is going to happen. We could go on expressing the negative narrative that has dominated the news throughout 2023. But one thing we know for sure, the future ain't what it used to be. And by that, I'm just saying that 20 years ago, 10 years ago, you could probably plan and organize your life a little bit more ahead, because there was stability of some form. But this time, it's very difficult, even at our level as individuals, for you to plan to say, in the next 5 years, I'll probably do a degree and apply for a job as whatever. I don't think it's that clear anymore. Now, this brings me to what Elder Paminda posted on the Bible study group not so long ago. He asked the question, does anybody know what doom scrolling is? And a few people responded. I'd like to read the response that Curtis gave. That was December 24. Give me a moment, I'm just looking it up here. I want to read what Curtis said, what doom scrolling is. Bible study group. I had never heard of this term before. And Curtis says, in addition to what Gabriel had said, says, in addition to that, I think there's a component of constantly taking in and reading a lot of negative news. Sometimes we feel we have to stay on top of and aware of current affairs in the world, especially as students of prophecy. And so feel the need to scroll through all the events and issues in the world. but it can be a lot to take in when we are constantly fed doomsday type news, constantly reflecting on the negative news of the world. I'm sure affects our mental health and adversely in the long run. When I read that, I said, wow. So I'm a doom scroller. And this is why I've been feeling the way I feel for a long, long time. Remember, I said, each time I've presented here, I said, hey, I'm scared of the future. I'm scared of what is going on. It's because I'm a doom scroller. I've always been. I just feed off all these negative stories in the news. And then it doesn't help that our groups in the movement encourage that. All the news items we post about negative things that are going on, I know that is part of our learning and it supports our narrative. But yeah, it has affected me and affected me, my mental health a lot. So much so that sometimes I just want to give up and say, we're going nowhere. We are doomed for sure. Hello?
How do you know that Curtis's definitions are correct?
Well, it was supported by others that gave more or less the same thing.
How do you
And
know they were correct?
I looked at it as well on the internet. And yeah, that's more or less what it's saying.
Okay.
And obviously it's a new word. So for you to say, how do you know it's correct? It's correct as far as the people that have used the word are saying.
What did Elder Paminda say it was on the Bible forum?
I don't think he gave an answer. He just asked the question.
I'm sure you gave an answer on the Bible forum, not our one.
Oh, okay.
I might be wrong. Pardon?
It was all on the Bible Study Forum, wasn't it?
No, on the Bible forum as well. I'm sure you gave an answer. I might be wrong there.
In fact, I was going to ask Elder Paminda, if you're still there, what made you ask that question?
He left the room. He's not here at the moment.
Yeah.
For the very reasons that you brought up,
Uh-huh.
that it's all doom and gloom.
Were you feeling that in any way?
I feel guilty for posting positive things.
Ooh, so you a doom scroller.
I'm trying not to be, and if I post something that's I think is positive or uplifting, I kind of feel guilty that,
Leading us astray.
like you say, I'm not following the remit of the movement. I get
Yeah.
worried about that.
Yeah.
He's not answered the question anyway, but you go back and look on confirmation. Oh no, for the word. Go back and look on the Bible forum. I might be wrong there. Am I wrong about that?
It says
I
there
know
they
what it
match
is.
pretty accurately with someone's topics that were. Does anyone? I don't really understand.
I don't
No.
think I gave a definition at all. I just asked the question.
You
Yeah.
said it sounded like confirmation bias.
But that,
When
I
you're
don't know what
doing
that probably
scrolling.
was in reference to.
But it is though, isn't it? You go looking for what
There was
you
a
can find.
definition that was given prior to what I had said doom scrolling was, which was in relation to the things that we read on social media and our likes and our disdates and whatnot. But I think there's a difference between that and what doom scrolling is. There is a danger in the other thing that was pointed out with how we use social media and looking for things that confirm our biases. But there's a distinction between that and doom scrolling.
Yeah. So
What's the distinction, please?
They just refer to two different things.
which are for us people.
One being what doom scrolling refers to, negative news, and the other one that was spoken about. Yeah,
You go looking for negative news. If that's what
about
you're-
social media and feeds, about different topics of interests and etc. And scrolling endlessly around those different topics and interests. That's one other thing that takes place, but they're two different words.
To answer your question, Brian, why I
Uh-huh.
asked the question is, I think it's very similar to the points you've made. I recognize the necessity as a movement, what we stand for, what we believe, to discuss these subjects, which tend to be negative. But I think
Mhm.
we're not aware of the harm or the damage that it's doing to us. And I think many of us are either ignorant or we're not willing to admit that it affects us negatively, to a degree that it can be quite harmful in the way that you've admitted that it actually doesn't make you feel good. I think many of us are either not aware of the damage that it's doing to us, or we're not willing to admit that it is. Maybe we don't want to appear weak or something. And it was to open a little discussion about that in the way that you're doing now.
Yeah.
Can I ask what the solution is? Because we have to look at what of geopolitical things. We need to know what's going on. So what's the solution?
Naturally, I've been asking myself that very thing. And I
Not bury
find
your head
that,
in the sand like most people do. You've got to know what's going on.
yeah, I find that I'm actually hooked. I'm a junkie for this now. It's been going on for so long that I hardly read any other stuff except what's going on in the world. And yes, until Elder Praminda brought it up, he's actually put a name to the disease that I'm suffering from. And I'm sticking with that name until somebody else finds a more scientific term. I'm suffering from doom scrolling. It's affected me more than I can imagine. My wife always asks me, by my conversations with her, I'm very negative. I've become a negative person, and I never was that kind of person, at least in my own thoughts about myself. But what's the use? What's the point? We know where all this is heading. And yeah.
Brian?
Yep.
If I can throw something to the mix that I've been, sometime I read a book about someone that used to work in social media, and he brought up a concept about this that I'm trying to think if it's related or not. I think it's something like, I recognize the distinction between confirmation bias and doom scrolling, but he brought another concept that could be like somewhere in between, that he was explaining how social media, its goal being having people remain more active and using more the platforms, so that they can sell more ads to people, etc. They've discovered that because of how we're constructed, if they feed us rewards, like in the forms of likes or comments or those kind of things, or punishments in the forms of not being liked or not being seen, etc., we tend to be more engaged. So they're feeding us content that makes us either angry or happy, and they found out, or the algorithms have found out, that we are more engaged if we tend to be more engaged with content that's negative or that makes us angry. So he was describing the danger of that. Yeah, so just throwing that to the mix.
Yeah, as you've just brought up something, what Natalie asked, what's the solution? Yeah, I am hooked on this, but what I've tried to do more now than ever before, I've joined groups on Facebook. Birds, I love birds, beautiful colors and the sounds they make. And I've joined groups on butterflies. Obviously, that would be in the same category because of the beauty I see in them. Birds, butterflies, flowers, roses. Yeah, so my algorithms changed quite a lot. So this is what I try to concentrate on. But yeah.
Ryan, I think that's the answer. If you've got to find a balance. I used to read a newspaper called Good News. I was happier back then, but then again, was I really? I was just burying my head to what was going around me in the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's finding balance, being present, finding peace in the Lord, and it's fine to read the bad news for 20 minutes, half an hour or two of your day. I don't think it will affect you if you find balance with all the beautiful things around you. If you can find them.
Yeah, and I'm glad that Elder Paminda actually did pick up on this. And yeah, although he says he feels guilty if he presents something that got some happiness in it. And I also sometimes look at things a little bit that are away from what the movement is presenting in spiritual terms, that is. To hear good stories of people that have turned their lives around, so that I can get away from all the doom and gloom. So now that we've begun a new year, I like personally to look at my life retrospectively of the past year, 2023.
Hi, Brian.
Hello?
Hi, sorry, I had raised my
Oh,
hand.
yeah, sorry, Charity. Carry on.
That's okay. Okay, I just wanted to say as well that as you're speaking, I'm also seeing a lot of that having happened with me as well. And I was just thinking, I don't know if it's because of how we have understood religion from the past. Many of us in the movement or being Adventist and coming from that background of conservatism, we have had a certain way of looking at religion or wanting to feel like we're closer to God, right? And in that way, we always tell ourselves we need to be serious. We need to make sure we keep up with what God is trying to tell us, and we often become quite negative, and we often become quite hard on ourselves and the people around us because we want to make sure that we are righteous and we want to make sure that we are going in the right path. And I sort of understand what Elder Paminda is saying, that, you can imagine everyone is talking about what's happening in the world and the prophetic narrative and all. And then when you want to try and talk about something that's different or happier, you feel like you're not serious, you're not serious with your religion, you're not serious with following with the prophetic events and all. But what that has done to us for a long time is that has also reflected on God's character, on how we see God, right? And we have been trying to be like God, but what we have in our minds is a wrong mindset. And we have also basically not paid attention to our emotions, how we feel, and we have always suppressed our emotions. We have just always told ourselves we need to be strong, we just need to keep going. And eventually it has led us to a point, it can eventually lead someone to a point of, depression, or you end up resenting other people or certain things, right? And it reflects on that Christian experience that we have, and we eventually go in the wrong path as opposed to going in the path that God is trying to mark out for us. So I just saw that as well as being important for us to discuss and be aware of, because it's going to affect our religious experience, and eventually we end up lost as opposed to being saved. Yeah.
Yeah, 100% Charity. That's very true. It is very true. And
I also want to say something.
yeah, go ahead.
I'm actually happy about this new word. I'd never heard it, but I personally am not a doom scroller. So, but I've witnessed and I've seen some doom scrollers. So I actually thought maybe I'm the one who's not normal, whereby there's just some people are always talking about negative things, and me, I'm like, no, why can't we just being a doom scroller, you can end up not being you might end up not living the life that you're supposed to be living at that moment. You're just focusing on negative things, and the life that you're supposed to be living just goes, and you're just there. So I think it's quite important, because I think it's the main thing is because of maybe lack of balance, whereby on Facebook you just want to go and look at the news and everything. You like what you're saying, that you started watching other things and following other pages that have got good things. So in life we just have to be balanced. Go to social media, go and look at those news, that the bad news, right, and see what's happening in the world. But at the same time, there's also the good side of life. You should just also focus on that, so that our lives is balanced. So I honestly am happy, because there's a time when I thought that maybe I'm the one who's not normal. But anyway, thank you for that.
Okay, Nyasha. Good to hear from you too. Yeah, I was saying at the end of each year and beginning of a new year, personally, I'd like to take stock. Blessing, what was that? Mobs. Go ahead, mate.
Hi, Brian. Yeah. So the conversation that's been had to this point just brought a question to my mind. So it's not that I have an answer, but I guess I decided to share the question because it might be a good discussion someday. Not necessarily today. I wouldn't want to divert from the direction your study is going. Mm-hmm. But it did bring to mind the question that, when we actually look at these external events that are happening in our world, what's the point? Why are we doing it? And I think understanding why we do it might also help us to find that balance, to actually follow, study, and understand external events properly, to understand them in context, to understand them in a way that would actually benefit us and benefit other people. So yeah, that why question just came into my mind, that I think it would be helpful to actually understand why we look into external events. Yeah, what's the point of all of it? That's what I wanted to say.
Exactly. Well, we have to, because it's the world we live in, and that's what we have. That's all we have. We don't have some mystical powers other than what is tangible and what is before our own eyes. So yeah, we have to do it. But as others are saying, yeah, let's also bring some balance into life. Sometimes we may take it too far and suffer the consequences of that.
Brian,
Yes?
I know I can say this to you because you know what I'm like.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're both saying we're looking to the world for direction.
No,
We have
not direction.
So sorry, maybe people didn't understand what I was saying. What I'm saying is, it would be good for us to understand why we look at external events. Because if we just look at external events for the sake of looking at external events, that's where we end up in doom scrolling. So I'm saying whatever we do, we need to do it with a purpose. Otherwise, we can get lost. That's the point I was trying to make. That we don't just look at external events as a movement because we like it or because we are just all about doom and gloom. So I was just trying to say, I think it would help us feel less guilty if we actually feel less guilty for trying to be positive or doing things that refresh our minds if we actually understand why, what is the place of external events in our message, in our work, personally, in our experience. That's the point I was trying to make. I hope it's clearer now.
Question. Can I speak?
Yeah, go ahead.
To Blessing. So what I understand from what you're saying is by looking at the reason, so we say, okay, we look at external events because we're trying to understand them prophetically. We're trying to understand them in the context of the great controversy and how that plays a role, how these different things play a role in that story. As much as a person can approach a news article or the hundreds of news articles that they're given with that perspective and knowing why, do you not think that there's also like a byproduct of that? When our brains have the mindset of knowing why you're looking at it, do you think that there's still also like side byproducts that affect you unintentionally? So even though you approach it with a right intention, side effects take place.
Before that question gets answered,
okay. Yeah.
Brian, I think we're going to run out of time, but could you give your testimony? Because I'm interested to hear what you're going to say about last year and this year.
No, well, it's very simple. What time are we going to end? At 12?
Yeah, I think you've got till 12. Cedric,
Yeah. Okay. In fact, I was going to throw this to everybody else, Elder Paminda. I like to look at my own life in the past year and see where I have lacked spiritually. And I go over that in my mind and where I can improve in the coming year. And that is even becoming difficult, as I said, because of how fast this world is changing. And I was going to invite everybody. You know, the world always asks, what's your New Year's resolution? And I was going to invite everybody on the platform right now. What are your New Year resolutions before we end? Are we going to move on to that, or does anybody want to just finalize on what Curtis and Ngubani were talking about?
Hi, Brian.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to answer Curtis's question. I think the issue is Curtis gave an answer, but the point, the first thing I said, I think, is I am not giving an answer. I don't think I have the answer as to why. So he sort of put a reason there for why we look at external events, which kind of made it like the predicate for his question. You know, like we study things so that we understand them prophetically and where they fit in the great controversy. But I didn't actually say that. Like I didn't give a reason. The point I was just trying to make is when we do things in life, whatever it is that we do, I think it's beneficial to actually know why we do certain things, because it can help us to give it its proper place. Like we don't get obsessed with that thing. We don't think it's all consuming. So for example, physical exercise is good for us, and someone can overdo it, someone can choose not to do it. Those are like two extremes. And if I am educated, if I educate myself on why it's good for me, what the point of physical exercise is, it can contribute to knowing how I do it, like where I put it in my life. Am I going to do 30 minutes a day? Is it sufficient? Because I now have a better understanding. Like I've decided to look into the issue itself. Like I'm not just doing it for the sake of doing it, but I'm doing it intelligently. Then I can fit it into my schedule properly. Then I know that, okay, so there's a place for exercise, but I have to do other things. I have to eat, I have to go to school. If it's school, I have to work, etc. That's the point I was making. So I wasn't sort of like insinuating there's some secret reason that I'm not saying. I was just saying, if we could actually look into it and have a discussion on it, it might help us to look at things better in terms of external events, where they fit in our lives. You know, it could actually help us to not overdo it or not do it at all. That's the only point I was making.
Okay. So then,
Brian, sorry, I know Emma said, did Emma tell you that we've got an hour? We've already just gone off the hour, but you can carry on until 12, I think.
yeah.
Is that right, Emma?
Yes, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So in answer to what Natalie was saying, that did you say the movement depends on external events for its narrative, something like that? Is that what you were saying?
No, I
Asking
asked the
Natalie?
question. We're not thinking we need to, I don't know what I said, but basically do we need to look externally
Oh,
to get direction for the movement? Maybe the answer could be yeah, a little bit of a yes, but yeah, I'm going to back out, because it's important that we look, but you know, we're not looking to the world for our answers.
yeah. The answers we have to come up with, definitely, but we have to look at the world, because that's something that is tangible. That is what is happening on a day-to-day basis. We are not excluded. And as I said, we don't have mystical powers to be able to control the narrative in any way, but we can do what we're doing and do it very successfully, in my mind, so far.
Are you saying God can't control it either?
That's getting into something else. We always have this discussion with Curtis, what God can do and what God can't do. And Curtis' famous expression is, God's hands are tied.
And I think looking at the world too, you know, externally, it does affect us because we live in this world. And it's really how we deal with ourselves, our emotions, our thinking, everything. And that's when God comes in. We can have that, you know, begin to grow our faith and trust that in some way God will take care of us.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to move on to the last bit of this thing today. I'd like to finish it on a positive note. I know I've had 99.9% negative in this presentation. For me, this year, I'm looking forward to continue growing spiritually by whatever means are available to me. Top of that list is what we're doing right now. Being able to participate and share. And I'm also looking forward to, I hope, attend a few international camp meetings so that, you know, this online thing, what we're doing now is okay, but up to a point. When you are in person at an event that's taking place, it is so much more better, I would say. Curtis, you had your hand up?
It was just an answer to your question about who has New Year's resolutions or anything of the sort. It's not really a New Year's resolution, but it's something that I started doing recently, which was in, we'll say, retaliation to my constantly doing stuff. I finished a puzzle. I started a puzzle about 5 weeks ago, and I finished it on the 31st of December. And I used that as, I call it escapism, as a way to just stop my scrolling on my phone or take my mind away from my work or news or whatever it is, to just sit and be present. And I found that while doing it, as much as I did get frustrated at times when I couldn't find a missing piece, but overarchingly, it brought me, we'll say that, a mindful moment to just sit back and box myself out from the rest of what's going on. And in those moments, I found what we would call peace, or whatever you want to say. So the resolution, if you want to put it in those terms, is to do more of those and find more activities for myself to just take a step back from the busyness that I find myself so engrossed by day to day.
Thank you.
Brian.
Yep.
If I can jump in, because I think that's really funny. I've told Curtis, but on December 24th, Christmas Eve, we were hanging out with Abigail and Marcel here that are also from the movement, and we were working on a puzzle, and then I saw Curtis' picture on Instagram, and it was the exact same puzzle.
Ooh.
And I had that same experience. Like, I was thinking, this is really cool. Like, I'm working on this puzzle. I was really focused on that, and I really thought of mindfulness when doing it. And I was like, I need to buy a puzzle because we couldn't finish. It was just one night. But I was thinking, like, I need to find a puzzle. So I just thought that was really, really funny.
Yeah. Good. Anybody else? Any New Year's resolution? Nobody wants to be a better
Yeah,
person.
me.
Go for it.
Me.
Yes.
Yeah, I used to buy puzzles for my daughter. She loves puzzles. So my first New Year's resolution would be buying my own and start working on the puzzle. I think it's something that would be nice also for me to do. Thank you, Curtis, and I can't remember the other one who said who talked about Andreas. Okay, then my real New Year's resolution was that I want to, in 2024, I want to have a heart that is always willing to forgive, forgive even anyone who does wrong to me. Maybe even if that person doesn't ask for apology, but I should just be a person who is willing to forgive. That's my New Year's resolution.
Can I add to your resolution there, if you don't mind, Yasha? To forgive and be
Yeah,
forgiven.
don't mind.
To forgive and be forgiven.
Yeah, that's powerful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Forgiven by who, Brian?
Whoever it might be. Whoever.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
because it's not
see.
like
I see.
because it's not like you're the one who
But
you're
it's
the
your
one who
problem then. Sorry.
okay. Sidri, I wanted to say it's not like you're the one who gets who gets people to do bad to you, but you can also do bad to people. So you should also be forgiven. Like you should ask for forgiveness when you've done wrong to people. Then, so it's being able to forgive and also to be forgiven.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody?
Yes, I'd like to say I think Kurt's idea is really excellent, and I love doing puzzles, and I'm always buying my grandchildren puzzles, but they start and they don't really finish. So I think I've got one here, which I'd probably keep for myself and use, and Nyasha's resolution is also good, but I was thinking of also writing a book on my experience living in Zimbabwe in the 50s up until the early 70s. And I think I did get started a couple of years ago just on writing the chapters, but I feel now I just really need to put it down in writing. So, yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
Okay.
Yeah, and me as well. I love end of the year and coming into new year, and especially like, yeah, I do. So I did set lots of goals, and my past year was quite tough. I think that was one of my hardest year in my life, and my goals are study more, really, just study more, grow spiritually. Spend more time with family and friends. It's just so important. And I just recently started going bouldering, and I just want to start doing this kind of sports which are social, but it's good fun as well. I want to laugh more during this year and just focus. I want to start working from home, whatever it would be, just whatever, just so I can see my family more often. I do really miss them. So it's more about connections, and I think like the balance to find, I think in connections for me, it's definitely the thing, and being more humble in my life.
Okay. Thank you, Magda. Elder Paminda, shall I guess?
Can I say something?
Okay, Courtney.
Hi, everyone. My resolution, and it borders on the lines of what many have said before, but it's being more mindful. So there's an exercise that I've started doing with myself and my family, is to enjoy the moments that we have. Because they always like to ask, what are we doing tomorrow? What are we doing next week? And I say, let's enjoy this moment today. The sun is out, or whatever it is. Let's just enjoy it now, because in the past I've suffered from doom scrolling. It's not a new term to me. I've known and suffered from that disease or addiction for years on years. So it's not new to myself, and trying to deliver myself from that addiction is to be more mindful of each moment. So when we were at camp, not the camp just passed, which I missed, but the previous one, we went to the waterfall, and that moment was absolutely fantastic for me. And I love those sort of moments. So I'm trying to give my family those sort of moments more and more, because as you say, the world is challenging, news is challenging, but take time to enjoy the beauty in life. And I know it's challenging, and I know a lot of it is corrupted, but there is still beauty out in the world, and I'm trying to capture those.
Thank you. In the chat, I think I saw someone, who was that? Alistair. Can somebody just read that?
It says, in closing, for me, 2024 is all about positive vibes. The news is too right wing for me, and I want to live love and laugh more and just enjoy each moment and be better. Amen.
Okay.
All right. May I also say something?
Yes, Mr. Kina.
Ina. Okay. Okay, sorry, I'm walking, so yeah, I'll be a bit loud.
Yeah.
So my resolution is to be churchy. 2024 for me is I want to be one of those very churchy folks. Yeah, I think it summarizes everything. I want to go back to 2016. The 2016 me, yeah, I think it's a more ideal person than I turned out to be of late. So 2024 is, for me, it's going back to the basics. Yeah, I think after going through various experiences in my Christian life, I've matured enough, I think, to be able now to go back and start implementing what I've learned through the years. So the way that can summarize what I really want to be in 2024 or what I want to do is just being churchy. And I also target attending some of the international camps like you, like what you have said, Brian. I am planning to attend quite a number of those if I do manage to. Yeah. So help me, God.
Amen. Yeah, in between now and the next speaker, I was going to say to Elder Paminda a suggestion for your resolution, if you have, and if you don't, this might help you. More camps, and yeah, people need to physically have you in their presence. You don't know what joy it is when your leader comes around.
Thank you for the encouragement.
Yeah. Is there anybody else? Otherwise, we'll close now.
I can't give a New Year's resolution because I'm still on Karaite reckoning and it's still 2023 for me. Sorry.
We'll come back to you in April, is it? Or whenever it is.
I thought in Africa they don't do New Year till January. Is that wrong? Am I wrong?
No.
In some parts of Africa, some continents probably do.
No.
Where is that from?
Chinese New Year?
No, it wasn't China. But some Ethiopia? No. What about South Sudan? When's their New Year? Isn't that January?
Not sure.
I think that's maybe you're dealing with religious organizations.
Oh, okay.
I think Ethiopia's on a different calendar though as well. That might be where you've got it from. They're on different
I think
days.
Chinese people have it differently.
Yeah, Chinese as well, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, let's close now. Let's close in prayer. Our Lord God, we're so thankful for the discussions we've had today. May you help us grow in grace. Throughout this new year, may we take note of those around us. There are many people struggling with mental health because of the negative narrative that is out there. Help us not to have a stony, cold heart, that we care not for our brethren and sisters. Help us to reach out to those about us in whatever way we can, whether it's financially, whether it's spiritually. May we be the one who stands up and says, "Here am I, send me." Thank you, O God, for this beautiful message. Thank you for your loving, saving grace. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. And thank you, Brian.
Amen.